All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to a Jedi Roundtable, or a very, I don't know, popular Coffee with a Jedi, I suppose, since we got more than one person going on here. And we are going to be talking about The Last Jedi. We're going to be talking about our basic opinions on it. We are going to be talking about some of the plot holes that some people think exist, or maybe they do exist. Maybe I'm just wrong. As always, I have my opinions, but I will be reserving them until last so that we can get a fair and honest hearing from our Jedi. Everybody knows that I am a great influence on the Jedi, so I wanna hold back my opinion there. So we're gonna go around the room to start off with for introductions. Mr. Hatter, why don't you start off?
Good morning. I'm Hatter with Temple of the Jedi Order.
Right, Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm the leader of California Jedi.
Yay. And well, Christopher or Brandel, you may go.
Either name's fine. Most people online know me as Brandel, so I'll stick with that. Don't really have a group. Mainly Bug Opie.
That's
Yeah.
Excellent school of learning and thought.
Yes. Fair. Any school of thought that bugs Opie is a good school of thought.
That's probably accurate. All right, so to go around, we'll start off just opinions. Oh, real quick, I should point out, any viewers, you are welcome to say hi in the chat. We do have the live chat going underneath the video at this time, so if you're watching live, you can. I'm keeping an eye on it, and you can say hello. You can address our little panel here. You can say what's going on. You can give your 2 cents, and you might get a shout out on the video, depending on how good you are with it. So let's just go around real quick. Your initial yay or nay, or good, bad thoughts on The Last Jedi. Had her kick us off.
Okay, when I started out, I was kind of worried that it was just going to be a rehash of everything else, and throughout the movie, I just kept going up and down, but I left really happy with it. I think that they tried to do a pretty good homage to the original trilogy, but were different enough that they went their own direction. That's pretty much my initial impression.
Excellent. Katie.
I loved it. I actually had to wait till the second viewing to be 100% sure I loved it, because I was so stressed out that Kylo Ren and were spoiler okay, right? Yes?
Oh yeah, I guess I should say, if you're watching huge spoilers, we're getting into pop.
I was so stressed out that they were going to get Kylo Ren and Rey together that I could hardly focus for the first half of the movie, so the second rewatch was better. I loved it. I thought it still really felt like Star Wars, but it was different with a capital D. And I thought that was a delightful thing, actually. So, especially for the future of the franchise.
All right. Brandel.
I get to be the dissenting opinion. I have not really cared for anything since Disney took over. From a corporate point of view, completely agree with everything they've done. Not a fan of them getting rid of the expanded universe and everything else. If we're talking just a straight movie, great movie. If you're, honestly though, I watch the movies more for what I can get from them, and there wasn't much growth anywhere I found.
Interesting.
Yeah, I get to be the dissenter today.
I'm shocked and amazed over the whatever 17 years that I've known you in the community. Oh no, yeah. Oh,
right.
Okay.
Surprising, isn't it?
All right. So fair thoughts all around. Let's. So I don't have like, these aren't numbered. These are things that I've just read in some of the silly articles that have come out since The Last Jedi of complaints, numerous complaints or things of that nature. And I'm glad we have a quote unquote dissenter, because I love to get that's what I'm always hoping for, is a different take on some of these things. And so I'm going to start off with an easy one. A complaint was that the Porgs didn't have a vital part in the story. So let's just get the opinion on Porgs and them, and the complaint of them not having a vital part in the story. Does that bother you? Does that take away from the movie? Is that an issue with the movie? Were you hoping to see more Porg stew? Like, what's your opinions on Porgs? Hatter, take us away, man.
I think they were a cute comic relief, and I found out that they were a local bird that they couldn't do anything about, so they just CGI'd them, which I thought was a clever use of the local wildlife in the movie. So they were cute but inconsequential, is how I feel about them.
Katie, thoughts on Porgs?
I feel relatively the same. I thought it was a clever solution to like a problem, but also like I don't know. I liked them more than I expected. I thought they'd be sort of whatevs, but they're pretty fucking cute. But I enjoyed that they got to sort of carry some of the comic relief, which meant Finn had to do it less, which I really appreciated because I think he needed all of the screen time he could get in this movie, for like real character development. So I sort of appreciated that, previous movie we had Jar Jar, like comic relief, maybe not the best variety, and we've had other like attempts at comic relief. I felt like the Porgs were sort of the least annoying version of that thing.
That's a fair viewpoint. Brandel, thoughts on the Porgs?
I think it's about as important as the lizard sitting out in front of Jabba's palace when it ate the thing. Who really cares? Though I did hear one lovely opinion where somebody thought it was promoting Chewbacca turning into a vegetarian because he didn't eat the one he had cooked.
I heard that opinion too from somebody. I was like, what?
That about made me die laughing. I was like, they're Porgs. It's a bird. Who cares?
That's great. It's great. Vegetarian propaganda. All right, cool. Sure, why not? So for my opinion, I love the Porgs. I didn't care their reason for really being in there. I felt they played out well in the movie, and yeah, it's a universe building. As Brandel said, it doesn't matter. As Hatter said, it's inconsequential. It's universe building. Like the Bith Band in the cantina. Like it's there. It adds,
Flavor.
It's fine. It's good. I laughed. I like the Porgs. Whatever. Didn't ruin the movie, I guess, is my point. Inconsequential. All right. Next, this is a complaint or supposedly a plot hole that I felt was an unsaid thing, or that this is a misunderstanding of something that was unsaid, and it carries over from The Force Awakens. It says the complaint is, or the misunderstanding, or whatever, however you want to phrase it, that Luke wants to be left alone. He doesn't want to be found, right? That's his conclusion in The Last Jedi, that he gives Rey, that he doesn't want to be found. And yet a map exists, and people are saying Luke created that map to find him. So how does that affect your viewing experience? Do you feel that's a plot hole? Do you feel that's a misunderstanding? How do you feel about Luke's map to Luke? Hatter, thoughts?
See, and maybe I don't know enough about the previous movie or this movie, but I always thought that was more R2's deal of the star map and plotting out his travels with Luke. And he's gone, 65 years now without a mind wipe? He's a rather eccentric droid, so, R2 would have done that regardless of Luke's wishes anyway. He would have made sure Luke could be found if they needed him. And they did. So it doesn't really bother me, and they had to have some way for people to find him, regardless of what the reason was. That you needed a way to get Luke in. That was a way that made sense to do it.
Yeah. All right. Fair thoughts. Fair thoughts. Katie, your thoughts on the map to Luke Skywalker?
It's not something I'd thought of before, that like Luke doesn't want to be found, so why is there a map? If it is a plot hole, it's a pretty easily filled one. Like that's like the Potter's example is completely possible. Another possibility is, Luke's clearly pretty conflicted on that island. Maybe he, some part of him did want to be found and he left a map behind. Maybe R2 just knows things because R2 knows things. Like if it is a plot hole, it's pretty easily patched over, I think. Like, I wouldn't find it distracting.
All right. Brandel, your thoughts on Luke's map?
I didn't think it was Luke's map. I actually thought Luke had found the map as a way to find the original Jedi Temple. And then he sent R2 back with information to go back. He was studying. He didn't need R2, which is why R2 had the map. I actually viewed it as a map that Luke found, because they had, I may be wrong, it's been a while since I watched Force Awakens, but they had most of the map anyway without R2. And then R2 had that little piece that they put in, which showed the rest of the way to Luke. So I took it as Luke had been traveling around trying to find the Jedi temples and sources of information, had been sending back most of that information ahead of time, which is why they had most of the map. The part where he located the temple, went on his way, R2 there, sent R2 back. Never considered it to be Luke's map. Considered it to be a Jedi map that just happened to show where Luke was, because that's where he went. So
yeah,
don't really see it as a plot hole.
I felt the same. I never thought it was Luke's map. Like I never considered it Luke's map. I always like you. I felt it was a map to the first Jedi Temple, that's where those who knew him best felt he went in search of. Right? That's like the line from Han Solo. Something that's close to there. I haven't seen The Force Awakens in a while either. Anyways, yeah, that's where they thought he went, and so that's what the information they were using to try to find him. And yeah, so I didn't think it was an issue. And like Katie said, I always feel like, and we'll get to that here in a second, I feel like Luke's character in this is a bit misunderstood, but it's all subtext and it's all unsaid, and because we're supposed to remember Luke from the original trilogy, where he is hopeful and he does care about his family and his friends and things of that. So yeah, isn't there a part of him who would want to be found, especially in like a dire circumstance, and that conflict would exist and he would have like some way. That's why like R2's never memory wiped. That's why Luke never goes that route, and why he has that piece of the puzzle is because just in case. So those are my thoughts. That's what I didn't feel it was a plot hole or an issue. And again, like you guys said, I didn't think it was really Luke's map to begin with. To find, especially Luke's map to find him, I didn't like that. That never occurred to me.
Jedi treasure map.
We'll get more into Luke. You know what? Since we're on the topic, I can check this off later. Since we're on the topic, let's talk about the major issues that people had. And the number one complaint: Luke is ruined. Luke's character is ruined in this. That the Luke that we knew, right, that we're shown in the original trilogy, is tarnished. He's ruined. He's not understood. He's not represented in this movie. He's humanized and destroyed. The Luke from the original trilogies is destroyed, and so Luke Skywalker's character is ruined. Do you feel this is an accurate complaint, Hatter?
I don't think so. I mean, being someone that's former military, Luke went through a war in which he battled his father. That alone is going to impact you. But then he rebuilds the entire Jedi Order from scratch. You're going to change. You're going to see larger responsibilities. I mean, as he said, he got to the point where he's Grandmaster Luke Skywalker. You know, he has the weight of the entire future of the Order on him. So he's going to have to change and grow. And yet, as we see with Yoda, Luke still never remembered the first lesson of keeping his eyes on where he was going. It was always ahead. So I honestly think that they kept enough of the old Luke there, and yet showed how the events of everything impacted him.
All right. Katie.
Yeah, I also actually thought this was a delightful version of Luke. Like, I understand people's sort of shock about it. This is pretty different than the Luke we had in the EU. And a lot of the parts of Luke in the EU were great, you know? Like, I understand people sort of being sad that that's not what we're going to get. But I thought this was delightful and a very realistic take. You know, like, I feel like Luke still had a lot of learning to do, and I actually think that Luke's portrayal pulled in one of my favorite parts of I, Jedi, where, you know, in I, Jedi, Corran Horn finds that his ability to interact with and use the Force is severely diminished whenever, like, while he still holds on to illusions about Corran Horn, the great rebellion hero, and Corran Horn, the ace fighter pilot, and Corran Horn, the, like, new vanguard of the Jedi. Like, when he has these great sort of images of himself, you know, built up, his ability to see himself and therefore use the Force is limited. And I thought that this was a lovely way of, you know, we know that Luke was Grandmaster Skywalker, you know, and that all came crashing down in a tremendously awful, hurtful, betraying kind of way. And, you know, when one of your illusions is shattered that badly, it's quite easy to go the opposite direction. And, you know, for him to be like, it's worthless and everything needs to be like, nothing will ever work again. And, you know, I felt like we saw a little bit of the whiny farm boy come back, and that seems very in character with Luke Skywalker to me. But I don't think it was bad. I actually loved watching him be able to grow and, like, face up to his own darknesses and issues within this movie. You know, I didn't expect to see Luke have an emotional story arc. I expected that of Rey and Finn and Poe, but I didn't expect that of Luke, and I'm pleased we got it, actually.
Brendo, your thoughts? Is Luke Skywalker ruined? Was he ruined in this movie?
It depends. I can see how people are upset by what they did with Luke. If you base it off the original movies, the trilogies, and even some of the stuff we learned from the prequels about Jedi and stuff, no, he's not. It's character growth. Like, you know, Katie said, he's still a whiny farm boy deep down at heart.
Just a little bit.
My only problem with what they did with Luke, I mean, speaking as a hermit myself, applaud what he did. I would leave here. You have to get out of the way to let younger people grow. If you don't, you're just holding them back. Something Yoda brought up. Problem, and my one complaint with Luke, is he never would have lit that lightsaber unless he intended to kill him. And it wouldn't have been a hesitation. You just don't do that. It's the dumbest thing you can ever do, is open up your weapon without intent to follow through. If he can read his mind, which is what they allude to, he saw the darkness within him, had made his decision, and then hesitated. That hesitation caused what happened when he woke up and saw him. Make noise. Light. They're not exactly subtle. A bad move. Annoyed me to no end.
Do you mind me jumping in here?
No, not at all.
Just as someone, I've had to draw my weapon in a serious situation, and I can say that that hesitation, that fear of what am I doing, is there another way, is a very real and human thing. Fortunately, the presentation of my weapon in the situation was enough to end everything without anyone being hurt, and the person that caused it fled the scene and was picked up later by the police. But I can say I understood that moment of, do I really have to do this? Is there any other way? So that was why I was more forgiving, but I
understand what you're saying and would agree if it wasn't for the fact that he was reading his mind. He specifically make it clear that he had read his mind, knew the darkness was there, and had decided to actually kill him, and then hesitated. A Jedi Master, which is what Luke is supposed to be, again, as Katie pointed out, he's still more whiny farm boy.
He can be both.
Should have made those decisions long before he ever pulled out his saber.
Yeah.
Because he was not an imminent threat. There was no instant attack of somebody else threatening him. He was standing over him asleep and pulled his weapon. That's very different than somebody else approaching you with a weapon and you having to pull to defend. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah, so my thoughts are just a tad different for that moment, but we'll get. I'll address that in a second. I don't think Luke's character is ruined. I said this in my review video. I never really liked Luke Skywalker in the original trilogies. Like, he wasn't my hero. He wasn't. I was watching him, but I was mostly complaining about him. Like, I'm like, shut up and listen to the wise Jedi Master, you whiny little. Like, those were my thoughts. While I still love Empire is still like my top movie, but at the same time, like Luke, because I love the progression. I love failure in learning. I think it's one of the most valuable lessons you can have in life, and the fact that that movie like embraces it, and is important. And so yeah, and in this one, I really liked Luke Skywalker. I really liked the growth and yeah, there's a lot of things that I liked about him, and I feel like his character, like people missed, but we'll get to that in a second because it was brought up, this whole Luke Ben backstory, and that was another complaint, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But in that moment, I view it a bit differently. I view it as another cave moment for Luke. I view it as basically the same thing. He goes to Ben because he's worried about this influence, and he has another cave moment. Here are your fears. Here are your fears, and they are vivid and live in front of your face. And he did the exact same thing that he did in the cave. He pulled his lightsaber, and he failed, but briefly. Like, it was that brief failure that even he says and for the briefest instant, he failed, and I feel like that's important because it reminds us that the hero's journey, if you will, is continual. It doesn't just end when you get to the top. You're going to face new challenges. You're going to face new darkness. You're going to face new trials, and you're going to have more moments to test you and how you respond in the future. And one success doesn't mean you'll automatically be able to face the next one in a positive light, So in that moment, like, I get what you're saying, Brandel, like why that moment bothers you, especially because of your background, in martial arts and things, where I think it's with swords, and yeah, you don't draw your sword unless you're gonna. I'm only gonna draw this when I intend to use it, and that intent is lethal. I know that this isn't here to to slow you down or to scare you or to maim you. This is a killing weapon, and I will only pull it and I'll only use it in that instance when I know. And if I do, that does mean that line's been crossed already. It's already been crossed in my mind. It's already been crossed in my spirit. So boom. So I get where you're coming from with that, but I do feel it was just, that's how I approach it. I approached it as a Kate moment, and so it didn't bother me. I love Luke. You know, I loved his epic moment at the end, right? When he steps out through the flames of the blast door, I'm just like, okay, all right, you win. Dude, there was a kid. I was like, you get him, Luke, man. You beat that. You get him. And yeah, so I thought Luke was badass. It took a while to redeem, sure, but yeah, I don't think he ran off to die like he says. Again, I feel that's Rey. You know, that's him trying to dissuade Rey. I feel he went searching for answers, like Brando alluded to with the map. He's going searching for Jedi information. He's going searching for Jedi answers. That's not running away. That's not hoping to die. That's finding the answers you're seeking and hating them. It's like that. I don't know if you guys know that meme that goes around every once in a while, where like the guy finds the scroll of truth, and then people put various things on it, and he reads it like if your caloric intake is higher than what you work out, you'll never lose weight. And so he's like, rah! And he throws the scroll of truth away because he doesn't like it. I feel like that's kind of what happened with Luke, that he goes in search of these answers, find that, no, the Jedi do this on a pretty periodic basis, like every 100, 300 years or so, we mess up, we unleash a darkness on the galaxy, and we have to kind of correct it. It causes a lot of problems. And then to be like, well, now I'm just right back as a part of that cycle, I can understand it. So, but this isn't my thing. Whatever. Okay, moving on. So to talk about that, Luke's and Ben's backstory. We get to see the Luke's original fluffing of the, of what happened. Like, oh, this is what happened. And then we see Ben's version of what happened. And then we see the truth of it. However, we all decide to perceive that truth. Brandel perceives it one way. Katie perceives it another. I perceive it another. Hatter has his way. But is Luke and Ben's backstory a weak backstory? That was a complaint that a lot of fans seem to have, that it was a weak backstory. Is their backstory weak? Hatter, take it away.
I honestly think we just don't know enough right now to make that call. I mean, how long did it take us to get the Emperor or Vader's backstory? I mean, how many years did it take for us to learn any of that for sure? So right now, I see how people can feel that way, but I'm just waiting for them to flesh it out, be it in the next movie, be it in more books. I still haven't read the Tales of Luke Skywalker. I just got that for the Christmas holiday, so I need to read that. I just don't think we know enough right now to say 100%. There's probably a lot there that they're going to fill in, or at least I hope they do.
All right, so Katie, what are your thoughts on Luke and Ben's backstory? Is it a weak one?
I mean, I guess I mostly agree with Hatter. I feel like maybe by weak people mean insufficient, which is fair. We only just learned about it. But there is already, this is a mixed answer, because on one hand, I don't believe that people should have to read the books in order to find the movies satisfying and meaningful. Not everybody's that kind of fan. But also, there is some of the stuff in the books. Even though Bloodlines is just about Leia and Ben and Luke don't actually appear in it, the events of that book, greatly influence, as far as I can tell, the events that happened between Luke and Ben in their, fancy new Jedi temple. So, I guess my viewpoint is that it's not weak, because I have read some extra books, but also, I don't know. I mean, Star Wars is a pretty straightforward saga, follows the hero's journey quite closely. You know, it's not super interested in delving into like highly complex, unanswerable moral gray areas, you know, like some, but mostly there's an answer, at least an answer you can figure out for yourself. So to have this sort of backstory of, but you betrayed me, but I betrayed you is honestly pretty par for the course for Star Wars, you know? And I think actually keeping it simple is both gives freedom for the story as it moves forward and also freedom for the viewers to take what they want from it. So.
Brandel, what are your thoughts? Is Luke and Ben's backstory?
The movie's only about 2 hours, people. How much backstory do you want? Seriously. They gave you the bullet points. Luke decided to do something, chose not to. Ben woke up, went, hey, I don't like what you were thinking. I'm mad now. I'm going to beat the butt out of you. Had to edit myself there, sorry. What more do you really want in a 2-hour movie? Sure, make it 6 hours. Have all the backstory you want. Otherwise, there are bigger things to care about than that's a weak backstory. Better than most. I have seen tons of movies with way weaker backstory than that. And nobody cared. So, I don't think it is. No.
Yeah, for mine, I didn't think it was a weak backstory. I really love I love the different points of view. As someone in the chat said, they felt it harkened back to Obi-Wan saying from a certain point of view, and that it kind of addresses that and Jedi escapes. And yeah, and I didn't think it was weak. I think it also highlighted Snoke's influence, because if you look at Ben's telling of what happened, he says Luke was jealous of his power and tried to kill him. That's not a conclusion any Jedi comes to. That is a dark side Sith kind of conclusion, and that's something that's probably already in your head. Like, you don't come to that conclusion without that. So my first assumption when I saw it was that this is something Snoke told him beforehand, right? We are told in that Snoke already has some influence in Ben, and that influence is what scared Skywalker. And then when Ben tells his side of it, you know, when he's like, yeah, he was jealous of my power and he was going to kill me. It's like, there's no Jedi precedence for that ever. That's not a Jedi thing, dude. No, that's a dark side. That's a manipulation tactic. So having that already floating around in his head, it makes sense for his reaction, because that you wouldn't. Yeah, you're already thinking that. You've already been told that. Oh, you're growing powerful. Luke's not gonna like that, and he's gonna want to stop you. And then you wake up, and there's your uncle, your master, standing over you with a lit lightsaber. That's the first thing that's gonna pop into your head. You are gonna react in self-defense, and then you're probably just whatever. You're gonna run off of whatever that original thought came from. So whatever Snoke had been leading up to, and again, we don't know that. We don't have a whole lot of insight into that, but whatever that was leading up to, then you know, that's what's going to take over. So I felt it was, as you said, Brandel, it's a 2-hour movie. Come on, people. That's why Star Wars does have its like millions of media and books and comics. And I agree, you can't judge a movie off of what's written in a book. You know, you should never have to watch a movie and read a book beforehand to explain it. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. We're judging a movie for the movie. But I mean, because we're so thirsty for more information, that's why these books exist, and that's why they'll always exist. That's why there'll always be comic books and everything else to expand these things. So yeah, I'm okay. I liked it. I enjoyed it. So there's two big things that I'd like to get into, and since we're already on this topic, kind of there, Snoke's death. Now I'm going to put this as a twofold question. One, did his death bother you? Like, did you find that like an issue within the movie? And two, do you feel it was a plot hole that Snoke that how Snoke died with the turning of the lightsaber and everything, because that was listed in a list of plot holes. I saw that in a couple different articles that his death was a plot hole because he should have been able to see it coming or something of that nature. So, do you feel his death is a problem, and or took away from the movie, whatever, or added to it, whatever? Your thoughts on Snoke's death, and is it a plot hole? Is how he died a plot hole? Hatter, take it away.
At first, it really bothered me, but then I thought back to the original trilogy. The most powerful Force user in the galaxy at the time, the Emperor, died by getting chucked down an elevator shaft, basically. I mean, the Emperor didn't go out, in some epic battle or anything. His apprentice picked him up and chucked him into the reactor. So getting taken out by your apprentice in a rather undramatic manner is sort of there already, and Kylo's been conflicted this entire time. And mind reading in Star Wars has never been perfect, especially the more powerful the person gets. So Ben being 100% conflicted and a very powerful Force user, I could see him shadowing his thoughts just enough to manage, 3 or 4 seconds of deception that it took to turn the saber and activate it. And he was mirroring everything he was showing in his mind with his lightsaber. So I think that Ben had enough training and was smart enough to pull it off short term. Long term, then it would have been a problem to me. But overall, I think it was okay. If I hadn't have thought back to the original trilogy, I might not feel that way.
All right. Katie, your thoughts on Snoke's death and the way he died.
I mean, I agree with Hatter that, like, I think that was pretty clear that, like, he was thinking in broad terms of, I will turn my lightsaber and destroy my true enemy, which is literally what Snoke says. And then he's able to sort of, do two things simultaneously because they're so perfectly parallel, which is terribly clever. And you don't need to be more powerful than Snoke to pull something like that off, especially with, definitely overconfidence was his weakness, I think. But I don't know. I was delighted that they killed him off so soon. Like, people spent 2 years between Force Awakens and Last Jedi being like, who is Snoke? Is Snoke Ezra Bridger? Is Snoke Darth Sidious? Is Snoke Bane? Like, who is Snoke? Is Snoke Darth Plagueis? Maybe. People spent so much brain energy trying to figure out who Snoke was. And I thought it was like the second and most sort of glorious stroke of the this movie is not going to be what you think it is, the first one was Luke tossing the lightsaber over his shoulder, which was so shocking and hilarious to me, of just this thing you guys think is important. Fuck that. Excuse my language, but seems appropriately leveled. So the fact that we we have this sort of nebulous big bad, who then turns out is deeply unimportant to the arc of the movie, other than his role in corrupting Kylo Ren. And now we have Kylo Ren as our big bad is so much more interesting because he's a much more interesting villain. He's complicated. We spent most of the movie building empathy for him, only to see him throw it down the trash compactor. I thought it was delightful and cleverly done.
All right. Sorry, there's a delay there. I'm reading the chat of conversations going on here, and all right, I'll address that as Brandel. I'll pull a Kylo Ren here and do two things at once. And Brandel, man, Snoke's death, thoughts, how he died. What's your thoughts?
Care less. Utterly pointless character anyway. The only reason I'm going to be annoyed by him dying so soon is because 6 months from now, a bunch of people are going to point out, in their heads anyway, that he was actually a puppet controlled by Kylo the whole time. And it's going to drive me nuts. That or Jar Jar. 'Cause I don't know if he's out in the Sith Lord. And he'll be back in the third in the 9th movie.
All right. Yeah,
Honestly, happy they killed him. Could care less. He was, ooh, I'm evil. Eh. And the way he did it, perfect. I'm with Katie 100%. And Hatter. It's the way you do it. Subtle. Quiet. Off to the side. Doesn't notice. Too bad. Down the pit you go, like Hatter said. Enjoy the reactor.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was clear. Again, I didn't think it was a plot hole like people, like you all pointed out. I mean, he's doing on screen what's being narrated by Snoke. It's pretty obvious and pretty clear what's going on, that he's thinking in vague terms, and at the same time being truthful. You know, so it's very clear. You can only kick an animal so long before it fights back, and I think you really get that build up in a movie. We see Snoke continually just like berating Kylo, and the realization it all plays into his growth as a character. I think, you know, when he's being like berated about, you know, he's not Darth Vader, and the realization that no, he's not, I think comes about at some point. But yeah, his death, Snoke's death, is it made sense to me. And yeah, would I like to know like where he came from, who he is, and like how did he influence Ben at Luke's academy, and like all, like why does he know the Force, and like all that. Sure, that would be very interesting information for me. We don't have it. He's dead. I couldn't care. Like Brandel, I couldn't care less. Like, that's not, I never cared about Snoke. Like, there was all these fan theories about who he was. I never even cared once. Like, I was like, I don't know, man. I'm with you. You get beat Jar Jar for all I care. I don't care. He isn't the person I care about. I care about the more focused character. I care about Ben Skywalker. Like, I want to know more about him. I want to see his character development. I want to see his character growth. I want to see, you know, Rey and Finn and Poe. I want to see how they evolve. Like, those are the people that I'm interested in. Snoke never once grabbed my attention, never really grabbed my interest, much like the Emperor. I thought the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back in Return of the Jedi has some very phenomenal lines that were very fun and time lasting. But in the end, I didn't really care about the Emperor. I cared about Luke, Leia, Han, you know, what was going on there. And, you know, so yeah, same thing. Darth Vader, you know, same thing. He wasn't big on my radar. I thought his death was handled fine. So no problem. Let's get into one that might be a problem for some people. Though we have military experience here. So I would love, because I think that plays into it. I think that has to be taken into consideration. Vice Admiral Hodo takes charge of the Resistance fleet, which we're going to talk about the preceding moment. Don't worry, we'll get to that. I know a lot of people had complaints about that one too. We'll be talking about that preceding moment. But so quite clearly that we know now, she has a secret plan. But at no point does she really tell. She absolutely does not tell Poe at all. And so, is her secret plan? Is this a plot hole? And how do you feel about that? Those are the questions that I have. The secret plan, her keeping her plan a secret, is that a plot hole? And what are your general thoughts about it? Like, did it bother you? Is it an issue? Do you find that Vice Admiral Hodo not telling Captain at that point, Captain Poe Dameron, about the plan an issue? Hatter, take it away.
Not at all. I was an NCO, so I don't have high-level command experience, but sometimes you have the plan and you need your people to execute it. You don't tell them all the details. You tell them what they need to do for their part, and you go do it. You don't question it. You know, it's called orders, not requests, not would you? It's an order. You do what you're told. That's what you signed up for. And at that high of a level, you have to know your people. And she knew Poe. There is no way that he would have agreed with what she was trying to do. And so she kept it close to the vest, especially because they were being tracked. So they could have had a traitor on board because they didn't know how they were being tracked yet. They had no idea how they were found. So keeping it close to the vest, not letting a hothead fighter pilot know everything where it could get out to the rest of the crew and possibly the traitor, because that's what I was thinking for a while is there a traitor? Did someone bring some special tracking device on board or what have you? Until they revealed the computer that they had to go shut down for a certain amount of time to stop the tracking. But everything she did from a high-level command point of view makes sense, especially when it comes to Poe, because he was rash. I mean, the Pyrrhic victory of destroying that ship and losing your bombing fleet, I mean, that was a waste of lives, in my opinion. As someone who has served, I'm like, no, you don't do that unless it's a fight ender, and obviously it wasn't going to be. So I agree with everything that happened with Poe and wouldn't have told him a thing myself.
All right. Vice Admiral Hodo's secret plan. What are your thoughts?
I like, in terms of why she didn't tell him, like how it went down, like I completely agree with Heather. And it's nice having somebody who was actually in the military, because that was my first thought. I'm like, this is a military organization. Like, he doesn't get to, like, there is a reason I didn't join the military. I would have been very bad at not questioning orders, you know, like I knew I couldn't do that, so I didn't sign up, you know, like, you know, that's part of the job. But that aside, I actually think it's more than not a plot hole. I think it's actually a very intentional, excellent plot device. Poe's arc in this movie, this is a sort of a smaller part of a theory I have about, you know, who is like filling the roles of the original trilogy, the original trio. But Poe's role in this movie is to learn how to be a leader, because it's pretty clear that Leia wants him to follow in her footsteps. It's why she's so annoyed at him when he screws up with the bombing fleet. It's why she demotes him when he screws up, but still continues to like mentor him and keep him in the loop despite his failures. You know, but this was a moment where not only Poe needed to learn, you know, like, okay, you're in a military organization, you need to follow orders, but Poe needed to learn the difference between a hero and a leader. You know, a leader is about like protecting the people. A leader is about listening to the people with more experience than you. You know, like, just because you're, you know, the shiny, cute ace pilot of the rebellion doesn't mean you know best. Just because you're one of our main characters doesn't mean you actually know better than the generals. And like, I think Poe acting so rashly in response to not knowing everything was exactly the kind of lesson he needed to learn. And he proves that he does learn the lesson across the thing, because then he repeats that delightful, you know, spark that will burn the First Order down, or the spark that will light the rebellion line that is Holdo's line, which we didn't realize when we just had the trailer. You know, of like, so this, like Poe screwing up and Poe failing at his plan, and everybody thinking, oh, well, obviously this complicated, sort of absurd plan, like that's what's going to be the plot, because that's sort of how Star Wars does. And then, no, you should have listened and done the right thing, instead of like trying to be this like rugged individualistic hero, was the opposite of a plot hole. It was the point of Poe's story.
All right. Brando, your thoughts on Vice Admiral Hodo's secret plan?
Well, we got the military view. Got a great view from Kate. I'm going to put it this way. I drive a semi for a living. I couldn't tell you what the guy up in the office does. It's not my job. Why would he tell me anyway? I don't need to know 16 different things getting transported across 15 different states. My job is to pick this up, take it there, drop it off. I'm more concerned about how they got bombs to fall in space.
We're getting there. We're getting
That's a
there.
neat
Don't
trick.
worry, that's in here. Don't
All
worry.
right, good. Honestly, I wouldn't have told him either. It's not his job. His job's to fly the stupid X-Wing and go blow things up. Go do that. That's what you're good at. He's not a general. Hopefully, like Katie said, someday he will be. I think she's right. That was the point, is that he's supposed to learn it's not all about sitting in the plane and pulling the trigger. It's about people, how to use them effectively. Like Hatter said, you wasted troops pointlessly. You didn't end the fight. All you did was prolong it. Yeah, that's about it.
All right. Yeah, I agree with basically everything that was said. My view was Hotshot Pilot doesn't get to know everything that's going on in the upper echelons of leadership. I mean, I thought that was made pretty clear. I also love that. I love that moment when Finn and Rose gets caught and he is shocked and he's like, they failed. Because no, that's not how Star Wars works. That's not, as Katie said, that's not how Star Wars works. You're supposed to do this convoluted, no chance of winning plan, and then your heroes pull it out. They save the day. Everybody's heroes. You cheer. You drink your blue milk. Everybody's happy. And that's not how war works. Sometimes you gotta do something else. And so yeah, with you all. I want to go through, so there's going to be two that I think are going to be a bit discussion holders. So, and I'm not trying to keep people here too much longer, keep this video going too much longer. So I want to do 3 things. Let's see how quickly we can get them out. Canto Bite. Just your general thought. Is it necessary? Did it take you out of the film? Like the complaint being in the articles that I've read that Canto Bite is unnecessary, and that it's an unnecessary distraction and diversion from the film. Is that true? Yay or nay? General thoughts. How'd it go?
I enjoyed that little aside. I think it was fun. Was it absolutely necessary? No, they probably could have found a completely different way to do it. But showing I think it was a good way of showing all of the rich people there. They're not good, they're not bad, they're looking out for themselves and surviving in a time of war. And yes, they're doing it on the backs of other people, but that is what happens in war, and they sell to both sides. They hedge their bets. And so it was, to me, a high-class hive of scum and villainy, the likes of which we haven't seen. That, and it gave me one of the parts of the movie that made me laugh the hardest, which was BB-8 taking out the guards using the casino chips. That absolutely cracked me up. So, was it necessary? No, but it was fun, and it showed the human side and cost of the war with the racing and the arms dealers selling to both sides. I think it added a bit of flavor to the movie.
All right. Katie, your thoughts on Canto Bite?
I agree. It felt very Star Warsy. Like I felt like something I could have read in an EU book. I liked it, but I do think that I don't know if it was Canto Bite itself or the way that it was stitched into the action, but the whole part where we're flipping between, waiting, running out of fuel, and Canto Bite, waiting, running out of fuel, and Canto Bite felt a little oddly choppy to me in the pacing somehow, and I'm not sure whether that was, is Canto Bite a weaker plotline? Is it a little bit stressful to just like sit and wait for them to run out of fuel and not really know what's going on? I'm not quite sure where the disconnect is happening for me, but that part of the movie was a little bit odd feeling compared to the rest. But I did like, like the points that they're making about, hives of scum and villainy aren't always, lowbrow criminals. In fact, frequently it's the opposite. And I enjoyed Rose as a character a lot. So spending time with her was great. And Finn's like one of my favorite characters. So anytime he's on screen is better. In fact, I think he could have used more screen time. So, the idea of like, do we need Candlelight? I'm like, but then Finn. What about Finn? So
it's a fair question. All right, Brandel, thoughts on Candlelight?
Was it necessary? No. Did it take me out of the movie? No. It was about as necessary as Bespin and Empire.
somebody else I was talking to made that point, which I thought is a really interesting one.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, we're running. Go over there. Casino. Come back. My only real problem with it is like Katie said, the whole flipping back and forth made it feel like they were under a bigger time pressure, and it seemed like they were really under when you were viewing the stuff on the planet compared to the ships. Because it seemed like, how long were they in jail? How long did all the stuff they were doing take? They got it all done in like 18 hours. That disassociation kind of bugged me, but other than that,
Yeah, I didn't have much of an issue with it. It didn't really take me out. I kind of view it in RPG terms of video games. There's always side quests to be done, and even though you would like to just focus on the main story and get to it and get it, keep the story rolling, sometimes those side quests are very necessary to the progression of the story. So yeah, I view it as a side quest, and I love Finn as well. So anytime Finn is running around like he does, I enjoy it. So good with that. All right, real quick, Rey's parents, yay or nay? Did it bother you? Hatter, take it away.
No, I mean honestly, who was who was Anakin's parents? He came from nothing, from nowhere. His mom died in a hole in the desert, just like Rey's parents, basically. So them, I think that was actually a really defining moment for the character, with what she went through in the dark side hole, I guess, instead of dark side cave, and the realizations that came there that she had to admit to herself in the underground cave or what have you. So it didn't bother me. In fact, who were Luke's parents? Again, they were moisture farmers, the people that raised him. There's a history of parents being nobodies.
All right, Katie.
I agree. I would have been really annoyed if they were like, oh, she's secretly a Skywalker, all of the sort of theories people had. I thought this was perfect. And I agree that it was like a major plot point and like character development moment for Rey of, like she keeps saying, I'm nobody. And people are like, no, you're not. You're like, you can't be nobody. You like seem important. Like you have powers. You have to be somebody. And Rey's like, fear is that she's nobody, and this like desperation to find out who her parents are is not only to like fill this hole of like she was abandoned and had to raise herself, but like in this horrible place, frankly. But that knowing her parents would somehow help her define who she was and her role in all this, as she says. Like she is constantly looking for parental figures to like point her way. And that moment in the cave where she reaches out and she says, like, show them to me. What she wants is show me who I'm supposed to be. And all she gets is herself. That's it. She's the only person that can define herself. And so the fact that her parents are nobody, and she has to come to terms with that. And Kylo Ren even tries to use it against her. He's like, they were drunks who sold you for booze money, like you're a nobody, but not to me, which is the worst space neg I've ever heard in my life. But You know, like he tries to like use that, you know, like if you're with me, if you come to my side, you're not a nobody. And Rey's choice is like, so fine, screw it, I'm a nobody, but like I'm me, you know. That's the choice that she gets to make, which is A plus Jediing. Like the way Luke didn't really pass his trial in the cave on Dagobah, I think Rey came through with flying colors.
All right, Brandel, your thoughts on Rey's parents?
Well, I'm going to throw out a kind of alternate opinion on it.
Mhm.
The only person that actually brought it up was Kylo. How much do you trust him? He's evil. He could be lying just to give hope to those people that actually care. Honestly, hero's journey isn't about your parents. It's about you and how you grow. People that care about who your parents aren't really worth caring about their opinion, because that's not the point. The point is how you grow.
Yeah, I agree. I had fun with the fan theories over the years, but my view was always they shouldn't be anybody. That should be your own character, and just go with that. That seems the direction. As Brandel said, our one voiced source is Kylo Ren. It seemed like Rey kind of accepted or acknowledged it, but never verbally. And of course, that argument was also made in Empire. When Vader made his revelation, people were like, "Well, Vader's the bad guy, so you can't trust him," and that kind of we don't know yet. We will. I'm sure we'll get something on it. So again, real quick, because I know the next two are probably going to be discussion points, or maybe not. Who knows? Maybe we'll knock them out quick. The hidden exit in the base on Crate is that. Did anybody have any issues with that? Basically, the articles that I've read all kind of say the same thing. Oh, there isn't an exit. Oh, wait, yes, there is. Is that how you perceived it? And did you have an issue with it? Like, did it bother you? Is it a plot hole? General thoughts. Hidden exit. Had her go.
That seemed so trivial to me. I mean, honestly, it's a cave system. How much of it did you really map when you were building the base? I mean, I guess I could see the complaint that it was a base, so they should have known everything about it. But then again, how much time did they have when they built it? So I can understand the complaints, but it was such a minor thing to me, and I really liked the crystal creatures, so I really didn't. It didn't bug me that much.
Okay. All right. Thoughts.
Again, on the list of things I hadn't put any thought into, of like, it's a 30-year-old rebellion base, records get damaged. This doesn't have to be a reason for every single thing. Like there isn't in real life, stuff happens, that is how the Force works. Like, that's basically how I feel about it.
All right. Brandel, thoughts on the hidden exit?
I think a big Horkin cannon blowing the door open can cause a few fissures here and there. Might not have been there originally. Big boom happens. Boxes go, look, way out. And they went. Would explain all the rubble.
Huh? Yeah, my thoughts originally when I read the first article that mentioned it and they listed it as a plot hole, as something that wasn't there but then is. I was like, but it wasn't there. As Brandel said, it's all rubble. I'm like, so there isn't an exit. yes, there's an exit for the crystal foxes, for the Vulpexes, but that's not an exit. That's in no way an exit at all. So I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it made sense. So
And then also we get that most beautiful scene of the gray rocks and the gray light and Rey in her beautiful garb, just like it's epic. It was a good shot.
which I feel highlights a Jedi lesson that I think a lot of people miss about belief and what you can do. I think it harkens right back to Yoda and Luke's failure with the X-wing. No one's told Rey she can't, and
So
Yeah.
she
on all these stories of magic powers and amazing things they can do, and so there's no disbelief in her mind of what she can and cannot do, and I think that's eventually I think that could very much be an interesting wall to come up against for a character to understand there is a limitation, that there are limits to this thing that you think you know so well, but yeah, we'll leave that for another time. So I'm leaving space gravity for last. I don't think it'll be that long, honestly. I don't, because I honestly think that it's pretty easily explained. You can go like 3 different ways with it if you need to, but we'll get there. We'll make that last one. And I also have one that I just want to throw out at the very, very
Can I
end.
answer a quick question?
Sure.
I'm actually more annoyed by what happened to all the troops that were there at the cave with the crystal foxes than the fact that there was a hole. Did that bug anybody else?
You
There were
mean
tons of
You mean
troops
did
along those
did the rest of the rebellion fit on the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah, where'd they all go?
I thought there were like 200 people left, and the Millennium Falcon has a lot of storage space because it's a smuggling ship.
There were troops all up and down that thing.
yeah, but
Okay.
they died a
Well,
lot.
maybe it's a Millennium Bag of Holding.
Fair enough. Then. Could be a TARDIS.
see the way
I guess I didn't really think about that. I felt like, yeah, there was a lot of people, but like most of them died.
A lot of people died.
They didn't do so there was 30 cargo ships that left. 5 made it to the planet.
Yeah, there were 400 people on those ships, I think.
Right.
At some point, that's the number that's thrown out.
Right. So it
Well,
gives you
only-
like 2,000 troops. Where'd they all go?
So I don't so you have 5 that only out of however, I don't know how many a transport holds. I don't know the exact number of troops that were on there.
Yeah.
But they did get shot up pretty well. Like, they didn't do well in that battle leading up to, like, it didn't, when they're talking in the cave, like, and they're standing in front of the door after
The
Luke's.
problem is they're there when Luke walks out and does his thing.
Yeah, but
you
not
see
that
them.
many. Like, there's not like
You see
that
them in the
many.
trenches still.
I don't know. I have to go back and look at it now. Now I'm curious.
Maybe we finally found a real plot hole, guys.
I'm gonna, when it comes out, I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna count each individual.
Well, it's just, as Hatter brought up earlier, the whole, if we go with what Katie was saying about Poe is supposed to be learning leadership and not wasting of troops like he did to blow up the ship. What? You just left a ton of people there.
see the way I looked at that is A, a lot of people died. B, the Falcon took everyone they could, but somebody has to hold the line and kind of keep their attention while the Falcon and whoever's left in the X-wings or whatever the fighter, was it Y-wings that they fixed?
Just gliders.
Oh yeah.
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 In the speeders or whatever.
Whoever is left that has a vehicle gets away, somebody kind of has to keep the attention of the giant walkers and everyone else. So at a certain point, there is military sacrifice, and that's kind of how I figured it went.
We'll have to come back to that when we can.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might be.
Round 2.
Yeah, I'll have to look at it. So let's go. So I want to get to this one. I don't think it'll take long. Vice Admiral Hodo's sacrifice. I did have a problem in the scene, but it wasn't with her sacrifice, which basically is, you can do that, That's like seems to be the major complaint. Like that. Why didn't it happen earlier? And again, shut up. So Vice Admiral Hodo's sacrifice, obviously, I thought it was a very beautiful scene. First of all,
It was so cool.
yeah, I thought it was very beautiful. I thought it was very cinematic. But thoughts on it? Is it an issue for you? Did it present an issue for you, like in the movie Hatter?
No, I mean, the initial plan made sense. It went kind of sideways. And so using the ship as a last-ditch weapon, I mean, I've seen that in plenty of movies. So, and they even alluded to it with the, hyperspace coordinates take time because if you don't, I think they even said you can smash into another ship. And so they kind of foreshadowed it a little bit. So, I mean, this movie was all about the sacrifice of true leadership and overcoming failure after failure after failure. So it didn't really bother me, and the ship going to light speed and smashing into the First Order fleet was an awesome cinematic display.
Katie, your thoughts on Holdo's sacrifice?
Yeah, just seconding that the shot was beautiful. Like I've seen it a couple times now, and every single time I've been in the theater, the whole theater is just like, like it just takes people's breath away. I thought it was beautiful. But that aside, like I did have a little brief moment, like thought of like, don't we have autopilot? But then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't know if Star Wars does actually have autopilot. Especially with, but like. Or like, why didn't they just do that so they could get away first? Because the cruiser was going to be destroyed is maybe a legit question. Because, if I were the rebellion and I knew that the ship we were leaving it behind and it was going to be destroyed, I would have set the hyperspace coordinates and, done that thing.
All right. Brandel, your thoughts on Holdo's sacrifice?
Well, to answer Katie's question, they do have not cruise control, but
autopilot.
Astromech droids do that.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, I was just thinking about it and couldn't figure it out.
Anybody but a high-level admiral, I'd have issues with it. She's got the codes to override the safety protocols to let you do what she did. You put Poe in that seat, I don't believe it for a second. He's not the guy that has control to do that. I also feel like she had to be on the ship because she couldn't use the astromech droids because they're specifically designed not to do that. You have to override them.
That makes sense.
It's kind of a necessary sacrifice.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I enjoyed the scene. I feel like they addressed why it couldn't have been done with Hux being the true believer that he is. He's single-minded. He kind of has that arrogance of a person who believes in their cause. His bridge captain or admiral or general or whoever is like, hey, this ship's doing this thing. Shouldn't we address that? And he's like, nope. They could have destroyed that ship. That sacrifice could not happen. Like, you couldn't just do it because they know what you're doing. They understand that, hey, this ship's about to jump to light speed. Who cares? They don't know what trajectory. They just know that the engines are powering up and things of that nature. It was ignored. It was ignored. And in any other circumstance, they probably would have focused their attention back on the ship and destroyed it. So it comes together as you couldn't just pull that off. My issue with that was it didn't line up with it's suspenseful storytelling, right? You have 30 ships. You wait till there's 5 left to do something. Do something. Like, the whole time ships are blowing up, I'm like, dude, just move your ship in front of them. You have shield steel. move it, protect them. What are you doing? And of course, but that wouldn't solve, Finn's dilemma. But yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. I felt it worked. I think that's a great point about you have to override the safety protocols. I didn't even think of that, but
yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, that's a great point that a high-ranking admiral would have done that.
Incidentally, is why it took so long for her to do it too.
Yeah,
She
and
advised it.
and I think you also brought up her staying behind makes sense to me as well. People seem to have a problem with that, but that's a military thing, I think, or that's something you just see in sci-fi and movies in general. Like the captain stays with the highest-ranking officer, never asks someone below them to sacrifice themselves. They're always like, no, we're going to evacuate the ship. I'm going to stay on the bridge. And it's like, but you're the highest ranking officer. It's like, yeah, that's why there's a chain of command. The next person takes over. It's good. I'm good. This is my job.
And it was, that the moment when she makes that choice was a lovely, lovely little moment in the movie anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
It felt almost like a goodbye to Carrie Fisher, even though
it did. Like
Admiral Holder was the one sacrificing herself.
I felt when I watched it that I imagined watching that after, watching that in the premiere, that the actress probably felt that was a good way to say goodbye, like, because it felt like she was saying goodbye, like to, as you're saying, like to Carrie Fisher, and it felt good. I like the scene overall. All right. I mean, I got a whole list here, but we would be here all day. So, space gravity. All right. This is one. I have my reasons. I got my stuff. I got my arguments for it. All right. So there's actually two complaints on space gravity. We're just going to address the main one, I think, is the way to go about it, which is absolutely the bomber scene. Which is bombs dropping in space. You can't say there's no gravity in space, but certainly 0 G's does. It makes things float. We know this. We see this on our space station. How do you view space gravity there, Hatter? Did you have an issue with the scene? What's up?
I honestly never took into account a lack of gravity. I just assumed the bombs were magnetic because they love to make, magnetic clamps for the astrodroids. Magnetic this, magnetic that. That's what I assumed was the deal with the bombs. I thought they were, at a certain point from leaving the bay, they magnetized to go straight down, something along those lines. So if they don't have that technical explanation, then yeah, what's going on? Why are they acting like that? They shouldn't be. But my immediate thought was just magnets. Maybe it's too simple of an answer, but that's how I went with it.
There's an even simpler response to that, but I'll leave that till later. Because someone might say, Katie, go ahead.
So, I didn't even think about it because honestly, I don't consider Star Wars to be science fiction. I think it's sci-fantasy. This is the kind of thing that you handwave most of the time in these kinds of movies. Like Star Wars is hardly the only movie to have physics just super not work the way it's supposed to. But that aside, there's clearly gravity in the ship. Paige falls in the ship and hits. She's looking out into space. There's clearly some kind of shield so she can breathe. There's gravity in the ship. So maybe the initial bombs would have the fall wouldn't happen exactly like that. But if they drop them from the top of the ship in that, they would still have enough momentum to continue to go towards the Star Destroyer in that direction.
First law of Newton's first law.
So, but again,
there is no resistance in space.
Guys, it's okay. Physics has never worked the way, Han Solo makes it the Kessel Run in however many freaking parsecs. Physics has never been Star Wars' strong suit. Let's put it that way.
That was the simpler explanation I was alluding to, Hatter. It's
I
But
actually have an answer for the Kessel Run too, but that's a whole nother thing.
No, I know the explanation, which is delightful, and I agree. But like, Star Wars has never been great at that thing.
Brandel, you mentioned it. Space gravity. Go.
Yes. Annoyed the tar out of me. Perfectly okay with the idea that there's some sort of launching mechanism. Perfectly okay with the idea of the magnets. Both of them work. My issue, why were you so close to the stupid ship in the first place? Why are you not 100 miles above it? If you can make those things go and they just fall to where you want them to go, why are you even remotely close? That's like taking a B-52 and flying it down Main Street at tower level and wondering why you got shot. That's not how bombers work.
All right,
That's
fair.
my big issue with it.
Okay, fair.
Gravity annoys the tar out of me for people that use that argument.
So
I actually went like with what Katie was thinking, that the ship itself was launching them, and once they go into space, they just keep going.
Right. Which I think addresses the other part of space gravity that people had a problem with, was the smaller ship moving faster than the bigger ship, and the cannons not being able to do enough damage at a certain range, right? And I'm like, if you're in space and you have space weapons and there's no resistance, that means if you fire and miss, that thing's going to keep going. So building any sort of space weapon with range inhibitors that they would dissipate over distance would just be smart weapon design, in my opinion. But yeah, space gravity. Another way that I thought might work is that ship's very big. As Brandel mentioned, they're right on top of it. Well, that's a very big ship, creating a lot of gravity for inside the ship itself. Maybe there's a bubble. Maybe there's a little gravity bubble, and that's why that works. I don't know. Don't have an answer. I go with Star Wars. The ships don't move like they're supposed to in space. They don't like.
The gravity bubble would even explain why they had to be so close. That they had to be close enough for it to grab the bomb from the bomber bubble to the destroyer bubble.
Like, I think we can all agree, Star Wars. I mean, Brandel will still mad. Space gravity, bastard.
Just go.
All right, so yeah, we're way over everything. One quick. Mary Poppins. Who had an issue, and did it bother you?
Sorry.
How'd it go?
I think the actual movement looked kind of hinky, but I mean, they've always alluded that Leia had Force potential. We know from at least Clone Wars that a Jedi can survive in space. That's Plo Koon, surviving when the escape pod was broken along with the troopers in their suits. Plo Koon survives with no suit. So that is something Jedi can do. And a Force pull, I mean, that's not hard at all. So other than the movement looking weird, the overall concepts are there for me. It didn't bug me too much, but it did look really strange the way they had the way they had that done.
All right. Katie has some thoughts. Go for it.
Yeah, I have some excellent positive thoughts about this. So one, I do agree that the movement was a little bit janky and it made it a little bit silly seeming as opposed to like really freaking cool. But like I have no problem with like, you don't instantaneously explode in space, or implode or any of the things that people think you do. Like you do start to freeze and you do start to suffocate. Like, but like we have advanced space medicine. Like I'm not going to worry about that part basically. But so this is a very personal reason for why I loved it. One is I was really worried they were going to kill Carrie Fisher off quite quickly. I was really glad they didn't, because the rest of her in that movie was glorious. But reason 2 is I have had the argument of, is Leia force sensitive? With like 15 separate people saying, no, she's not, or we don't really know, which I think most people would agree. We do really know that she can use the force. We have many instances, like this is the most intense, obvious time she's done it, but like we know that Leia is force sensitive. But I've run across at least 15 separate people like willing to argue to the death that Leia could never be a Jedi because she's not force sensitive. So I'm really pleased about the scene because it's really hard to argue with Mary Poppinsing through space. Like I will never have to have this argument again, and I'm really pleased about that.
That is fair.
So, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Brandel, your thoughts on Leia's moment?
Well, I'm amused by the fact that you called it Mary Poppins. First time I've heard it.
Really?
That's what other people have been calling it. I didn't make it up.
Yeah,
I love it. Jedis do funny things.
Yeah.
I'm with Hatter. The movement's a little hinky, but other than that,
yeah.
training with Luke to learn some really cool tricks.
Right.
Go Leia.
That's what my thought was. I thought it actually kind of gave a nod to the EU in that sense, because in the EU we know that Leia does seek training for a little bit and is like, not my thing, not my arena, not who I am.
She has more important things to do than be a Jedi.
Right, and then chooses politics, chooses being that in that arena over the life of a Jedi and things of that nature. But she does learn some things, and she does learn, and I feel like that's kind of a nod to that. Look, yeah, she probably never apprenticed under Luke, but that's not to say that her and Luke didn't sit down, talk about this thing, and he didn't pass on some important tidbits about this power that she has. And it's said within Return of the Jedi. Luke says, my sister has it. It's very clearly stated, and then we get the, as Katie said, the undeniable moment of, yeah, no, this isn't just connections with Luke. This isn't just maybe, feelings that you get through the Force. This is someone who could have chosen to be a Jedi if she so desired and chose not to. And I think that's powerful in itself. But yeah, when it happened, I smiled. I had a okay. Because of it was because of the movements. But I think that's just a hard thing to do in general. I think that's probably a very difficult thing to try to make. Yeah, I don't think you could actually do it maybe better. I don't know, but that was the only. I didn't have an issue with her coming back and all that. I, like Katie, I was like, oh, there it is. I wonder if they changed. Like at first, I was like, oh, did they add this in because she's not around anymore? Like I was like, oh, already. It's too soon.
Yeah.
I am not prepared for this. But yeah, and then so that she came back, I was all for it. So yeah, good stuff. There are other complaints, but they're all minor stuff. And so just to close out, I know we kind of talked about it in the beginning, but just to close out, closing thoughts on the Last Jedi. Hatter, your closing thoughts.
Honestly, I think Luke summed up my opinion of everyone's complaints, which is what he said to Kylo Ren and what he said to Rey, which is funny. Every single word of that sentence was wrong. I think the movie was a giant funny, everything you think or thought was going to happen is wrong. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing a bit of Luke channeling Yoda as the crazy master on an island, and I think they did a pretty good job overall. There's some minor stuff, but I mean, what movie doesn't have flaws?
It's a fair point. Katie, final thoughts on Last
Jedi? I guess I'm really excited for the next movie because, like Force Awakens, people say it's a remake of A New Hope. I disagree with that pretty strongly, but it does like include the same sort of like tropes or plot chunks. Like it traverses that chunk of the like cycle. Whereas this movie, like a lot of like the stuff that happened in this movie, honestly, was all of the major important parts of Empire and Return of the Jedi. So, in terms of well-worn path that we've taken already, we've kind of already done all the major bits. So I have almost no idea what's going to happen in the next movie, other than like probably Kylo Ren will be defeated. Hopefully the Resistance will like gain strength and it'll be positive at the end. But like like Rey will continue to be and learn how to be a cool Jedi. Like, but I have no idea really where the next movie is going. Whereas this one, I had sort of a general idea of what might occur. And I was wrong in some ways and right in others. But it's exciting to have no idea what's going to happen next in a Star Wars. So I'm pretty excited about that.
All right, Brandel, final closing thoughts on The Last Jedi.
Pretty much the same as my opening thoughts. From a corporate point of view, beautiful movie. They did a great job. Left enough plot holes to get people talking, obviously. Keep you excited for the next movie. Get you to read the books because, well, you want to know about Snoke? Read this book. I mean, that's the whole point. From a business point of view, that's what you do. Brilliantly done. As Hatter brought up, there's a big, you don't know nothing. You thought Leia was, oh man, they're killing Leia right now because of that. No, we're not. We're just messing with you. It was a beautiful mess with you moment. You think you know what's happening. You don't. From my personal point of view, didn't like it. It's just, and honestly, I've really thought about it a whole lot. And my problem with The Force Awakens and this one is Rogue One. If they hadn't put out Rogue One, which I thought was a great movie, I would have liked these better. But because of Rogue One, and they showed they could do a standalone film without having to worry about rehashing plot, coming up with, reusing old characters, doing things of that nature, they didn't need to make these two movies the way they did. They could have just stuck with standalone movies, done a great job, built them into the universe, not screwed up 30 years of history, which was already there. That is my biggest problem with the way the franchise is going now. But Rogue One's better.
Fair deal. My overall thoughts. Well, one, I already have a video on it, so I liked this movie. I did. It's definitely up there, and I enjoyed where the direction they're taking the characters. I like the character development we got out of these characters, the new and the old. I loved that the Force. I like how they presented the Force in this, and that I thought Luke's lessons were important.
Mm-hmm.
And relatable to us. That the Force is there. It doesn't. It's not a side, right? That it's there and that there is a balance naturally and things of that nature. Like I really liked all that. I liked Yoda, of course. Anytime you get a Jedi Master hermit going around bonking other Jedi on the head, I'm gonna give you a thumbs up. Yeah, so I enjoyed it. I feel like there is some things to take away from it from our community standpoint, and overall, I just enjoyed the pacing and everything else. I felt it was, as Brandel said, as if you just take it as a movie, it works. Like if you just take it as a movie, you're gonna enjoy a ride. You're gonna enjoy a fun little movie that has probably a few moments in there where you're gonna roll your eyes, but ultimately, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to walk out okay. So I want to say thank you to to our panel, our Coffee with the Jedi guests again, Hatter and Katie and Brandell, and then as well as our people in the chat. Whoops, there we go. Chat people. Jedi Scapes, G Wheeler. Who else we got in this monkey? Marta, I know is in there somewhere. Teddy Castle and Donna, Dandy, I think got in here. Ezra Felix is made an appearance, and yeah, I think that's everybody. If I didn't get you, my bad. But thank you. Glad you all joined us, and glad for all the comments in the chat. Really good thoughts. We will be back with another video at some other time. So thank you, and may the force be with you.